Today's chapter is called Give Them Hope. It starts with a few verses from Luke 15. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbours together and says, "Rejoice with me. I have found my lost sheep. I tell you that in the same way there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who do not need to repent." I read a story recently about a woman who became convinced that there was too much hatred, injustice and prejudice in her community. She decided to try to change the people there. Night and day she would walk around the streets protesting against greed, indifference and selfishness. At first, people listened for a while before simply walking on. Eventually, they just stopped listening. Despite this, the poor woman continued protesting for years, until one day a small child approached her and said, "You poor woman, you shout and you scream, but can't you see that it's all hopeless?" The woman agreed that it seemed hopeless. "So why are you still doing it?" asked the child. "Well," replied the woman, "in the beginning I thought I could change people. Now I'm just determined not to let people change me." Sometimes our temptation will be to give up on discerning and following God's will. The world can be cynical and disparaging about faith and spirituality, and we can be dragged down into dismissing our discernment of God's communication. Today's passage is a parable of mercy, grace, compassion and love. It reassures us that no one is beyond redemption. God will not give up on us. It is also, however, a parable of hope. 99 sheep are safe, but the Good Shepherd's concern turns to the one lost sheep. We therefore have a beautiful example of a shepherd who does not give up hope, despite the difficulties he faces. While this parable reassures us, it can also inspire us. It can, after all, encourage us to stay strong in our beliefs and not give up hope ourselves, whatever the obstacles in our way. And of course, the knowledge of a God who is so determined to share his unlimited love with others, however lost they seem, gives us a beautiful hope that we can also share with others. When Leslie Newbigin, the theologian and missionary, came to Britain in the 1970s, after many years living in India, he was asked what he found most difficult about returning to his home country. He did not choose to complain about how secular the country was becoming, or to talk about the loss of Christian values in contemporary Britain. Instead, he spoke about a phrase that holds as much, if not more, truth today: the disappearance of hope. Our faith, after all, is about hope. Hope for all people, whatever their background, race or age. In other words, like the woman in the story, we must not become disillusioned and let our hearts of hope be changed. Each of us must continue to discern and live out God's will. And together we must offer a hope that our communities, society and world desperately need. The social activist Harvey Milk, one of the first openly gay people to be elected to public office in the United States, inspired those who felt they had no voice and saw little hope for the future There continue to be many people today in our communities who feel that way because of their social background, age, sexuality, race, or simply because of the labels that others put on them. Our call as Christians is to give them hope. By doing so, we align ourselves with God's will. Within a year of Harvey Milk giving his famous hope speeches, he was gunned down and killed. Living out and preaching a kingdom of hope is not always going to be easy for us either. Our faith, after all, means sacrifice. It is the religion of the cross. But it is also a religion of the rainbow, the dove, the light, the life-giving water, and the resurrection. As such, we Christians and our churches should be inspired by Harvey Milk's famous words. You have to give them hope. Hope for a better world. Hope for a better tomorrow. Hope for a better place to come to if the pressures at home are too great. Hope that all will be all right. Without hope, the downtrodden, the oppressed, the struggling, the suffering just give up. I know that you can't live on hope alone, but without it, life is not worth living. So you and you and you have got to give them hope. A point of reflection. Consider how you personally, or how your church, could help to bring hope to a person or a group of people. Think about which group is most in need in your local community and try both to pray for them and to do something practical to help them.